Good morning, everyone. We hope you're all safe and well. Welcome to Impact Investing Opportunities in Crisis Time, a forum on rebuilding the nation through inclusive business and the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. We'd like to recognize the organizations that made this happen: the Philippine Development Foundation, or PhilDev, the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, and Australian Aid, or AusAid. As we rebuild the economy, we may be tempted to make up for lost time by growing the economic pie as big and as fast as we can, leaving the slicing and dicing for later. But given how much many of our countrymen have lost, many falling back into the poverty they just recently escaped, inclusivity cannot be delayed. We are therefore pleased to have the CEOs of Kennemer Foods International and Messy Bessie as our speakers today. They are leaders in reaching for the SDGs via inclusive business principles. We look forward to their insights on how to further this in the COVID-19 era. Before we hear from them, may I invite Paco Sandejas, Chairman of PhilDev, for an opening message and to introduce our resource speaker. Paco?
Thank you, Coco. Good morning and welcome to the membership meeting on inclusive business for sustainable development goals. Today, we are grateful to be joining, albeit digitally, our partners in the Innovation for Social Impact Partnership Program and the Makati Business Club as we move the conversation and investing in inclusive business forward, most especially in this challenging time. The COVID pandemic has drastically changed the business playing field. According to a study by the Asian Development Bank, 65.9% of businesses ceased operations after the enhanced community quarantine, or ECQ, which took effect in March. Others were fortunate enough to have access to resources and were able to pivot quickly to the changing landscape. With more businesses moving to the internet, we found ourselves facing the era of digital transformation, accelerated all of it, which comes with the new challenges such as creating more engaging user experiences, enabling remote access to various products and services, developing new algorithms, ensuring digital security, among many others. In this new era, or the new normal, being innovative will keep you competitive. At PhilDev, we are a firm believer that education, innovation, and entrepreneurship enables the success of Filipinos. This is why we, together with the United Nations Development Program and the Australian Embassy in the Philippines, we are all proud to be part of the ISIP project, as it mirrors our pillars at PhilDev. Entrepreneurs, however, can only do so much to reach their business and impact goals. As seen in various studies on the impact of the pandemic on businesses, they need various kinds of support to stay afloat. They, like all of us in business, most especially need financial backing. This is why it is good to have a joint meeting with the Makati Business Club, a financial power in the Philippines. It is our role as mentors, supporters, and may I say investors, to be the fuel that enables these amazing social entrepreneurs to drive and reach social impact, success amidst the many challenges. There are three ways we think we can invest in social impact entrepreneurs, and these are the following. First, we invest in their business directly and mentor them to optimize their resources to ensure that they add value to their businesses. Second, let's buy from them, availing and promoting their products and services to ensure that they continue making an impact on their stakeholders and communities. And lastly, number three, let's support these projects and programs like ISIP, that have been part of the journey of many social enterprises, including those who are with us in this meeting today. With our combined efforts, let us all together enable a robust and thriving entrepreneurship ecosystem in the Philippines, despite the challenges that come along our way. Although we can't physically meet in one place today, may this virtual gathering pave the way to strong partnerships, to fruitful collaborations that foster more inclusive businesses that thrive and support more successful Filipinos or business people in the Philippines. I do apologize in advance, however, that I can't stay for the whole meeting. due to a conflicting board meeting that I have at the moment. Nonetheless, our executive director at PhilDev, Becky Pia Doroda, will remain. She's here with us right now and will more than ably represent me and the PhilDev organization. Again, thank you, and I wish everyone a productive and fruitful day. Before I go, I would like to introduce you to our keynote speaker for today's meeting, Mr. Simon Bakker. He is the CEO of Kennemer Foods International, a Filipino agribusiness known for the sustainable growing and sourcing of fermented cacao, and is the Philippines' leading supplier of cacao beans to the international market. This is amazing. They have engaged more than 17,000 farmers in more than 30 provinces and planted 90 million cacao trees. Amazing. Kennemer has been able to engage farmers at scale to improve yields, to increase and sustain smallholder farmers' income, and to expand the footprint of Philippine cacao without cutting down trees. Kennemer aims to engage 30,000 farmers and plant 40 million trees by 2025. That's all. Welcomed, amazing Mr. Simon Bakker.
Well, thank you, Paco, for those kind words and introduction. And also, I want to thank ISIP, the Australian Embassy, for inviting us. PhilDev, obviously, Paco, and Coco and the Makati Business Club, and just giving us the opportunity to a little bit share our story. And what I wanted to do in my little keynote speech is to share a little bit kind of our experiences, part to explain, the journey, and also maybe give some guidance and lessons for other social entrepreneurs and for other businesses that want to endeavor to more include an inclusive business element into their business model, right? So that's the coverage of my speech. Maybe let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Paco. So our inclusive business model. So the good thing is Paco kind of briefly touched base on the high level, right? So we really are a grower network, and for smallholder farmers, where we started off really on cocoa or cacao, as we say in the Philippines. And if you think about it, our main business proposition was and is still the value through post-harvest enhancement. And in cacao, that's especially relevant because the flavor and the quality of cacao is really made through the fermentation. And if you manage that well, you can make a beautiful chocolate, you can make a beautiful cacao. By managing it by doing a proper fermentation and getting a much better price. And that price then flows down to farmers. Farmers start either doing their own fermentation or sell the crop in a fresh form to you where you can manage that centrally. While we had enthusiasm from the market, we are the largest exporter, but that really means we're not that big. I mean, that means the pool is very small. And our effort now jointly with many others is to increase the size of the pond so that there is more cocoa and this industry can really grow. In order to do that, our first endeavor really to scale up was to really help farmers access financing. We still work and originally worked predominantly with land bank through cooperatives. And for those of you who do that also, you'll know that while it's possible, it is also very tedious. And so we did it for a number of years. We still do that, but we ended up actually setting up our own finance company, a company called Agronomica, to really allow us to finance the best farmers and the individual farmers. So what we do now is we give, these are basically unsecured loans, but we have buyback arrangements and other risk mitigation mechanisms to allow to do that. And to get financing faster. So I think this is still an area where there is a lot of help and innovation needed to scale up financing. Agronomica, the finance company, is one element in that, but I think as we work here as entrepreneurs in the nation, I think whatever we can do to bring more financing at farm level is very much needed. What managing our own financing taught us is that really we need to move away. I mean, we started very much like a cacao-centric organization. And what you learn is that, well, if you do financing and you really work with farmers, it's much better to be farmer-centric in your financing, and cacao can be an element in that. And so what that meant for us is that we ended up having to finance also other crops. And really, in a way, the company has moved away from a cacao to a multi-crop grower model with other crops like banana, abaca, mung beans, and other things. And really, why you need that? One is that, you know, as we know, cacao is not that widespread, and so there's a knowledge gap. There are many other crops that are kind of more traditional, that there's much better knowledge, so that are kind of safer to finance that way. And for us as Kennemer, it meant that also providing a buyback guarantee on those crops as well, to ensure those loans could flow to farmers. And so what you see is there multi-cropping. We moved to multi-cropping. The other big thing actually learning is that soil health is such a key thing, and multi-cropping can really help with that. And designing good multi-cropping kind of agroforestry systems is key for steady cash flow for farmers, and also is a natural kind of climate hedge. The next lesson learned, I think, is on training and mentoring. You know, where you have a lot of young people that want to get into farming. There's still quite a bit of enthusiasm, but they lack the coaching and mentoring. And there's a number of kind of older farmers that want to change, or they, you know, because our program is a voluntary program. We're not a government program. You sign up because you want to. You invest in yourself. And that, in a way, is a very good pre-selection of motivation. And the key there we found is that the amount of effort that needs to go on in training and mentoring is much greater than we originally thought. And this is an area we originally had a model that very much was focused on farmer leader training their kind of cluster members. But we realized we need to train every farmer. Another point to look at is community. When you come in, if you just engage farmers for production, there's a lot of other elements you need. And so what we realized we needed doing is a broader community-wide focus, where you look at logistics, help in the post-harvest. There's a lot of other elements you need to work with. And so you really need community management to look kind of holistically how that crop can be successful with all the supply around it in that community. And then lastly, I think technology. It is really now essential that we leverage technology at the, some people say last mile, we like to say first mile. Technology that works. So that means communication in terms of crop performance, monitoring of loans, remote sensing. There's a lot of opportunities there. So we think that really for scaling up further, for us, we're very much dependent on integrating technology into our network. So these are some of the elements and some of the lessons learned. Maybe we can go to the next slide. So what is kind of led for us? We've been in business now, I mean, close to 9 years. You know, we're going to our 10th year. Is in a way we've kind of created an ecosystem. It's almost a network for our clients to become an inclusive business. And so you have large food companies that want to source in a sustainable, transparent way, and we kind of provide a platform for them to allow to do so. What has that meant for us? It meant that we've had to set up a number of strategic partnerships for you know, kind of working in the various provinces and locations where we work in order to facilitate support. We cannot fund everything ourselves, and also you know, to do R&D. So if you kind of look at the building blocks, I think for us the spearheading element when you go into a community is that community business development. Work with the community, make a business plan holistically on all the elements, of which maybe cacao production is just an element. R&D is important to continuously look at technology and how you can integrate. You know, we're looking at smart irrigation. We're looking at kind of drones to monitor lawns and to monitor farms, and a number of other things. Cropping systems, you know, what crops can work well together that enhance, you know, less use of fertilizer and other things. So I think R&D central element for any inclusive business in the farmer space. Education, I mentioned that earlier. I think there's a lot that can be done in education and technology on how to deliver training and ongoing coaching, that not everything has to be face-to-face. I think there's opportunities there. Continue it on access of financing. I mean, that needs to scale up further for really the impact to be greater in the farming communities. And then innovative markets. So as you start planting multi-crops, there are many other crops that you can plant, tree crops, flavors and fragrances, spices, things that enhance. So the cash flow from a kind of farm perspective, if you work in this kind of multi-crop integrated farm, is a multitude of crops. And so I think that kind of shows you a little bit the ecosystem and the elements that we end up working on. And that kind of leads me maybe to the next slide. It's nice to look at that. Is you know, we didn't start with a mission to kind of do rural transformation, but as we work through this, we started really just kind of buying fresh cocoa, doing fermentation, and as you start working with communities to help enhance your volume and to scale up, we became much more purpose-driven, I want to say, as an organization. And this is something that I think is really embedded throughout our team, is that you know, in a way, our programs have the ability to bring around rural transformation. And that rural transformation comes about through inclusive growth and climate balance solutions. So really important, we include also the climate element within that. And I think anybody who works in this space, there's a couple of elements you kind of, I think you need to bring with you. One is that if you want to make impact in the inclusive business space, you need to be a bit ambitious. Why? Because the problems that you're going to face are big, and if you're not ambitious, you know, you can't make impact. So it's okay to dream big. You need to be creative, because the problems are sticky problems, and many people have tried to solve them. So unless you're willing to really kind of think through things differently, then it's probably not going to work. Multi-stakeholder, you know, you can't do it alone. So I think that I think it's clear on the way for most people who work in the space. You really need to come in as a partnership, with a partnership mindset. Tech-enabled to scale, I think that's essential. Market-driven for financial sustainability, financially inclusive, of course, fair and transparent. Fighting rural poverty and fighting climate change are interrelated. So, you know, if there is a lot of effort right now globally, and I think there's a lot of financing possible also that we can channel into the inclusive business space in trying to stop deforestation. And that cannot be stopped without livelihood, if you don't give people comprehensive livelihood. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. And so I think that is an important element for any effort in the kind of farmer space. If you work there, right? I think systemic approach, any solution should take a systemic approach. I think I referred to that earlier. I mean, these are all interrelated systems. That there's a reason why these farmers don't have access to, either it's a road, internet access, is it, you know what I mean, financing, then they cannot buy inputs, training doesn't come, it all needs to come holistically. Collaboration models we've talked about, market-driven. I think beyond climate, I think, you know, the next push really is going to be more in biodiversity. And of course, it's important to always have a gender lens on your investment. So I think that kind of summarizes, I think, the main elements of our mission, and also maybe give some pointers for aspiring social enterprises, you know, take elements of these. We'd be happy to collaborate. I mean, we really are kind of a network, but also happy to coach and guide anyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thanks very much, Simon. Before we go to questions from the audience, allow me to introduce Ms. Cree Reyes Lopez. She's founder and CEO of Messy Bessie, who will be joining Simon on the panel. Cree started Messy Bessie in 2007 as a for-profit social enterprise that seeks to rehabilitate, educate, and empower at-risk young adults. Her mission has been to develop an effective, sustainable, and replicable business model that enables disadvantaged young adults to lift themselves out of poverty. Before we do go to questions, Cree, may I invite you to share a brief response to Simon's presentation?
Okay, yes, sure. Thank you, Coco. Thank you, of course, to PhilDev. We're at the tail end of a contest we launched with PhilDev, so thank you so much. It looks like our online learning will have a better situation because of our collaboration. Thanks also to ISIP and, of course, Makati Business Club. So yeah, first of all, I just want to say I'm really in awe of the work of Simon, and also in awe of the scale that they've reached just in 9 years. Messy Bessie's a little bit older, but we're smaller, and I'd like to think that we are the smaller urban sister of Kennemer. And at the risk of sounding a little bit self-promoting, I'd like to react to Simon just in light of mirroring what he has done through our work. So what many people know, if you see the next slide, what many people know about Messy Bessie is we are a line of natural products. So just like Simon, the environment is something that is very at the core of our products. But as Simon said earlier about shifting from being farmer-centric to being from farmer-centric to being, from being product-centric to farmer-centric, we're also shifting from being product-centric to being youth-centric. So if you see the next slide, at the core of our business, we put up Messy Bessie just to provide employment and education for at-risk youth. So these are like marginalized youth, as Coco mentioned. And just like Kennemer, we also have a systemic approach. So I just want to show you how the case that Simon presented can also be translated to other applications, just like in Messy Bessie. So just like in Kennemer with tech, we also have tech, but I think our tech is in neuroscience. So that is the approach that we use to address the young adults. We also have a holistic lens. As you can see, we address many facets of the young adults, not just education and employment. We also bring in the community. We have family days all the time, and we bring in their families just to make sure the young adults finish college and have proper work training and be able to be self-reliant in time. And just like in Kennemer, where they invest themselves and it's purely voluntary, it's the same with us. There's no dole-outs. I think this is a very critical aspect to a successful inclusive program. And so the young adults, they work, they earn, and they pay for their own schooling. And so there's nothing for free. And when you walk into our office, if you see the next slide, if you walk into our office, you will see that more than half of our team, although you won't be able to tell who's who, are made up of our young adults. They do real work that the business needs, and this empowers them to, apart from just giving them a salary. And I think this empowerment has led to a dropout rate in our program at less than 5%, which is a miraculous number in the development sector. And if you see the next slide, these are our graduates. We've had many, and we have a number every 3 months, every 4 months. And in the Philippines, a single college diploma has the power to lift an entire family out of poverty. The statistics have shown this, and we've seen it also ourselves. And to be able to do this, we're very small. We're not at the scale of Kennemer, but I do echo what Simon said about making sure there are collaborations and partnerships. So our approach is that we perfected the seed in a very small scale. And through collaborations, through multi-stakeholders, as Simon mentioned, we really are pushing to transform the lives of these young adults to make them lift themselves out of poverty permanently through collaborations with school, with more businesses that are willing to take in young adults the way we have. And we have around 100 young adults in our program right now, and there are 5 million out there. It's ambitious, but as Simon said, it's good to be ambitious. It's good to dream big because the problem is sticky, the problem is massive. But by creating a very creative solution that is replicable, that's what we hope to do. And so I hope that through our little story and by echoing the success and the scale that Simon has done, we are making a stronger case for inclusive businesses. And we do hope to inspire everybody to include the many, many marginalized, and there are more right now, to be in the bubble that we all enjoy, especially in these times, in this pandemic, where they're increasing in number. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cree. For the Q&A, I'll be turning over the program rather to my colleagues, Roxanne and Genevieve. But before I do that, I would like to ask a quick question from both Simon and from Cree. What inspired both of you, Simon first and then Cree, to put up these two projects, Kennemer in the case of Simon and then Messy Bessie in the case of Cree? Simon?
Well, yeah, I think for us, really, it started as an agricultural endeavor, thinking there's so much resource there and there's so, much opportunity. And so we started really a bit with that product focus, and really it was a chocolate focus. And along the years, we became more of a social and farmer-centric. So it is kind of what started this was the product and the quality of the product that we could get. Of course, we're very passionate still about chocolate, right? But
by the time you started it, you had been here close to 20 years already. What made you interested in this problem?
This crop, because I think one thing, of course, the beauty of well, one thing, I'm originally Dutch, right? I came to the Philippines as I mentioned earlier, about 25 years ago, but originally grew up in Holland and in a cocoa processing area. So we have lots of chocolate around. And so it just seemed to fit very well. And I think Paco mentioned it briefly also in the intro. The beauty of cocoa is that it intercrops very well. So you're not trying to take away anything from anyone. You're adding. And so and it's a nice product. No, it's nice to talk about chocolate. Everybody likes chocolate. It always helps.
Thanks very much, Simon. Cree, what moved you to put up Messy Bessie?
Yeah, so for me, it's quite the opposite from Simon. The purpose started first. The social mission started first. In fact, we came out with a service prior to Messy Bessie that failed. But I was working with these young adults that I wanted to empower. So the purpose came first. But I think now that we're both 9 years old, 13 years old, it looks sort of similar already.
Thanks very much. Maybe later on you can tell us about the thing that failed but sparked this this project.
Yeah.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Genevieve and Roxanne and Genevieve. Roxanne is the head of our policy and programs unit, and Genevieve is a senior manager there. Guys?
All right. Thanks, Coco. So good morning, everyone. As Coco said, I'm Roxanne and I'm the programs director of MBC. So we're now going into our Q&A session, which Genevieve and I will help facilitate. But before that, may I invite everyone to please use the chat box to type in your questions to either Mr. Bakker or Ms. Lopez, and we'll try to call you in order as much as possible. Although I can see that Mr. Bakker has started answering the questions already. We'll still give you later on the floor. Of course, if you have airtime, there's more time to discuss about it and also elaborate on the questions and the answers as well. So before we jump into the chat box, Mr. Bakker, I have a question here. I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, you have now more than 12,000 smallholder farmer partners, right, in your supply base?
Yeah, I mean, close to 20,000, 17, we're actually going to reach 20,000 probably by next year. Yeah.
That's great. So you mentioned that this is voluntary on the part of the farmer. And today, you've proven the effectiveness of the business model. But before, when you were starting, how did you get the buy-in of the farmers? I mean, I can imagine there must be a lot of shifting mindsets. That could be a challenge, and others as well. How did you overcome such challenge, entering into that and introducing that to the farmers?
True. I mean, I think I think I would want to say in many of we work predominantly in Mindanao. And there is really, in many areas, there's such demand for economic development and opportunity in the rural areas, right? So in a way, it's like we're entering an area where people are just ready to engage if there's a model that kind of works. So I think that's one. Two, then there needs to be a bit of trust, right? And so I think the key there is trust that you're going to stick around, that market is still going to be there. You know, cacao is a tree. It takes a couple of years, and so people need to have a bit of confidence that. And so I think for us the challenge was to build that confidence in the early days, and to really go to the communities and communicate with them about it. You know what I mean? How we're going to stay around, how we can buy, and the key there is also you need to buy everything. Another thing what you see sometimes with buyers, especially multinational buyers, they only buy their quality requirement, but of course farmers have 3 or 4 specs that they some very nice and some not so nice. And I think if you're out there in the first mile, you need to buy everything that's food grade. And that helps also. That gives that assurance. So buy everything. Show that you're sticking around. You need to be investing in the community, not come just in and out, right? And approach people.
Great, thank you. That's very clear and good points. And I hope everybody, and particularly your guests from the social enterprise community, really take note of that. Genevieve, do we have the next question from the chat box?
Yes, we do have some agriculture-related questions from the chat box. I'll just call on, I'm not sure if this is a Miss or a Mr. Canisoyo November. Would you like to pose your question for Mr. Bakker?
Hello, good morning, Mr. Bakker.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, my name is November Cañesuyo. I am based in Bacolod, Negros Occidental. We have been in partnership with farmers since 2017, and we started planting the Philippine cinnamon. We're also developing products, so we can buy the cinnamon that they have planted. May I inquire if you have programs, if any, similar for this kind of crop, because cinnamon is also used for chocolate.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. I love cinnamon. I think it's a very interesting crop. I'd love to talk to you about it. The beauty of cinnamon is that it can be intercropped also. And so really, I think we can do a lot in the Philippines with cinnamon. And this is very interesting. I mean, we are looking at some Indonesian kind of production models where cinnamon, of course, plays a role there. It's a much bigger crop there. And we have market for that as well. So yeah, definitely interesting, and especially in agroforestry models, it's a bit of a long-term play, right? For when you do new planting, because it's similar slow crop, but it fits well, and so maybe we can contact each other and we can explore, because I think cinnamon and other flavors and fragrances, especially in an agroforestry model, are very nice complementary crops that fit in these smaller systems, and especially in also areas like indigenous people where a lot of tree planting needs to be done.
Yes, in fact, the cinnamon we planted in the natural park where the indigenous peoples are, and it's also the water reserve of our island.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean there are a number of fragrance and flavor crops that are tree crops that can be used in the early days to help enhance cocoa from a shade perspective, right? So a nice environment, helping also to create a more climate balanced environment. But then they are revenue generating themselves, and so much better, if you can have both without cutting the tree.
Correct. Because we're now harvesting the leaves to distill oil and hydrosol, and we're producing sanitizer using Philippine cinnamon, hydrosol, and then essential oil from lemongrass naman.
Yeah, nice.
I'll get in touch with you, Mr. Bakker. Thank you very much.
All right. So we're seeing a really good business networking happening here, and let's continue on with that. And I'd like to invite Mr. or Miss Toby Goodroad. Could you please raise your question to Mr. Bakker here?
Hi, Mr. Bakker. I actually missed your portion of the presentation, so hopefully I can review the recording. But from what I understand, you're working in the development side in chocolate, or creating products or buying high quality, but also helping farmers get established. Are you looking for more support from other corporate companies that work within agriculture in the Philippines?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't know what type of support you are, but the word support sounds already good.
Yeah, well, obviously we've been there for a long time. Yara Fertilizer Philippines, if you're familiar with.
You're Yara, yeah. That wasn't clear.
We're very interested in this crop globally, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've worked with Yara. I think Yara has some we've worked with some of your, some of your R&D people also in the past. You have some specialist fertilizer products for cocoa.
Yeah, good. Well, I'll try to be in touch then.
Yeah, happy to talk about that.
All right, thank you, Sir Toby. Mr. Bakker, can we go back to the question earlier, and maybe you can share? You mentioned the importance of working with all the stakeholders, the community. Are you working right now with, do you have joint programs with the government, some departments of the government? Maybe you can expand on your answer in the chat box.
Yeah, we do. I mean, there's different models. We work with local government, more on identifying the communities. There's also, of course, with their local kind of the municipal agricultural offices. There's quite a bit of financing nowadays through the Department of Agriculture and the ISIP-MBC, the kind of department under DA, that works then with the municipal agricultural offices. So that, I think, is one area. We've worked a lot in the past with PCA also. So I think I'm financing. The other area that I think we can do a lot more with government is, and especially under the leadership in the DA, is on extension. I think we need to channel more good quality extension support to the last mile, to farmer communities, and not just kind of go to a seminar in a conference room for a half a day. You need kind of cluster-based ongoing coaching to help people. And I think that to me is a good opportunity that I think that everybody wants this to happen, and we can work with government to make this, scale this up further. So I think that, those are kind of areas. Traditionally, it has been a bit of planting material distribution, so that's okay, but it needs a holistic model. So planting material distribution. It's been a little bit about now it's a lot about access to finance, and so working with LGUs and with the DA, facilitating government funding, and I think the third element is extension or training support.
Mr. Bakker, your next question is actually coming from your fellow speaker. Maybe call on Ms. Cree to pose your question to Mr. Bakker.
No, I was just wondering if there's a gap in the consumer end. From you're talking about crops and how you buy everything, right? So I'm wondering if there's a gap in terms of the market, and I would love, as a consumer goods business, to explore also using some of maybe the surpluses or the rejects, or even the high quality ones, if there's
I mean, I think what we would like to do is, as I mentioned, right, we are going to kind of more crop agnostic models so for us, what we cannot do is spend a lot of time facilitating the selling of crops of farmers, because we are busy with the financing, the technical support, and the post-harvest. So our model is a many to few, right? We have many farmers and we go to a few customers. If we can, what we would like is to find partners in certain types of crops that we can grow a lot of, and have a few larger customers. You know, it doesn't have to be super large, but you know, areas that we can that we can create a market, right? And so that farmers, and then the idea is that you create this multi-layered space. So if you have things that are 90 days or 120-day crops, and you know your tree is your 5-year tree, it takes a long time, right? And so especially that space that are grasses, oils, or things that can go fast. And then of course we work also on the tree crops that are even longer, right? So the kind of the shade trees. So it's really you know, kind of this layering. And then for us, we need to find partners for that. So if there are products that you could source, I'd love to explore that. You know what I mean? Oils or grass or other, I mean, things that you use. You need to educate me on that. Yeah.
Miss Lopez, we're wondering like what specific like types of crops are you looking at right now and exploring maybe for future Bessie products? Because as you know, we also have other guests here that might be, you know, are into other crops as well.
Okay, so I think one of our big frustrations is really being able to source locally, especially for the additives. So these are essential oils, fragrances, and even like you know, things that moisturize you, cacao butter or things like that. Most of these are still sadly imported. I think what we have local are coconut-based soaps, sugarcane-based alcohol, so just the big bases. But in terms of the additives, I think there's a lot of opportunity to create local ingredients for these, and we'll gladly support the local suppliers.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Bakker and Miss Cree. Genevieve, do you have a next question, please?
Yes, we do have a question from Ramas Jude Alexis. May we ask you to pose your question to our speakers?
Hello. Hello.
Yes,
Good morning.
hello, can hear you.
Okay.
Morning.
Just one. Would like to ask if how in our side, in engineering side, can we help assist, especially the farmers, the businessmen who are willing to have their system automated or something like that. I believe that it is important nowadays to have remote sensing installed to some of the areas in where farmers need not to visit most of the time. So we'll use the technology to increase production. So at the same time, of course, to increase profit in for the farmer side or maybe the business side model. Thank you.
And maybe as a clarification, Jude Ramos, maybe can you explain a little bit where you're from and your background?
I'm Engineer Jude Ramas. I'm a engineering faculty at EBSU, Eastern Visayas State University, specializing mostly in automation like smart homes, smart buildings. So actually, I also plan to have, if opportunity knocks, I will give some of my time to have partnership with farmers or maybe small community farmers, so that we can have we can train them and we can help them with automating their like example the cacao or maybe any form for the for the farmers.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of stuff happening in this space, right? I mean, there's a lot of IoT, Internet of Things, on agri side with kind of sensors. You know, it's very, you know, these things are becoming more and more affordable, where you can put sensors in farms to monitor moisture of soil, to monitor kind of rainfall, of course, you mentioned the remote sensing, to have this then integrated with irrigation. I think that the Philippines is relatively underdeveloped in rolling out irrigation. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think for me, the key is that all of these technologies, in a way, and maybe in your position as a university, we need to, in a way, kind of filter a little bit and apply these technologies in a way that they kind of work locally for us in the actual environment where we work, right? I mean, sometimes there are assumptions being made that this technology can just be installed anywhere, but that's not always true. It needs to be affordable, and it needs to be have a good return to a farmer, right? I mean, you need to earn more money from it, so easily can repay the investment. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of try out some of these solutions and to kind of come up with packages that work for us here. So to me, that's a great opportunity to focus on.
Ms. Cree, do you have anything to add, maybe in your experience about the tech solutions, and to answer Mr. Ramos's question?
We're not really end users of tech, but what maybe interests us in terms of innovation and science is more in terms of the product. So how do we deliver, for example, the goodness of the crop to the skin? Or how do we deliver the product itself through packaging that is biodegradable or using no packaging at all? So I'm more in the consumer end technology, but I would love, again, as I said earlier, to again locally source all these ideas and these techs, because we find it hard to find even just biodegradable packaging locally.
Okay.
Thanks for that. And maybe just to segue, we'd like to invite Miss Anna De Castro to share her comments here. She has some insights building on your comments earlier about sourcing. Miss Anna?
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. So I could just, really relate when Miss Bessie speaker earlier mentioned that it's so hard to source local products here in the metro. Usually we buy from imported sources and they're more expensive. So I'm really thankful for you guys for organizing this forum. Maybe we could, network with each other because we are operating a weekend market in the middle of Manila. We have two in Intramuros and in Rizal Park. It's called Old Manila Eco Market. We are trying to do it online at the moment because we have been closed since the lockdown. But hopefully the Department of Tourism would allow, small events like us because our MSMEs are really struggling with all of the competition happening online right now. But if we could have like a single source or maybe, like a co-op where we could source our products locally and it's legit that it's really local, it would be very easy for us to promote it in our neighborhood, and especially now that the mayor of Manila is very supportive of local products.
Yeah, Miss Cree, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think there really is a need to, as Anna Marie said, to consolidate all these suppliers, and not just that, to also kind of equip them with the right ways to or processes to be able to be accredited as, if we have to go through FDA and all these processes, and it's quite stringent. So I think there also needs to be some sort of filler in for that in terms of equipping the suppliers to make sure they meet the standards of what is required of us, the manufacturers.
Yes, I think our next question is from Robbie. Robbie from uproot.ph. Would you like to pose your question for Ms. Cree? Okay. Okay, if he's not available, then shall we go on to our next question first? Between side. Okay. Next question is based on Ms. Anna's insight a while ago. mentioned about how her business were impacted due to COVID-19. So our question for our speakers right now is, how do you think we can apply sustainable development goals given this COVID context? How should the businesses move forward, and so on?
I guess I can start.
You start,
yeah. Yeah, it's a tough question, but I'm just speaking from how we do our business. So as I said earlier, we employ people who are not normally employed, and then we provide them education and all these things. We provide them a program that normal businesses don't do. And I think for me, at least, this pandemic is really pushing everybody to rethink how we do our businesses, right? Because whatever we were doing pre-pandemic is obviously not working. And so what I hope as an inclusive business is presenting a very simple solution that will be able to address these inequalities that we were never really able to address before. And so that's at least how I see it. To look to companies like Kennemer and to all these progressive companies to see how we can do things differently, finally.
Yeah, just to add to what Chris is saying, maybe it's also interesting to note, if you look from a financing perspective, you look at microfinance and agri-finance, and the one that's really suffering is microfinance. It's consumption driven, but the one that's thriving is agri-finance. I think this COVID is not necessarily, other than a bit of logistics of being able to approach people or kind of moving goods or payments, the actual effect, of course, farming is very much COVID compliant. and so I think our farmers are thriving right now. I think financially it's not as impacted as some other sectors. So I think in one thing it kind of shows that the core, which is farmers growing crops in a sustainable way, is just a very good way of living, of creating a living, and we should support that. So I think so it doesn't change. In other words, in fact, we should promote it more.
But as a follow-up, are you saying that there is still a healthy appetite from investors and entrepreneurs to pursue impact investing and inclusive business models at this time?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is a bit slowdown because the investments are many. If you want to start new projects, people can't visit the area, but the appetite is there. And I think people see also, agri is. That's what I'm saying. In a way, it's a reappraisal of that agri is quite an interesting area to invest in because it is more, it's a bit more, shock proof for this type of situations.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite Ms. Josephine Lim. She has a question for Mr. Bakker. Ms. Josephine.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to ask about transitioning to becoming an inclusive business. Does that make it more expensive? And what are the other added values of becoming one?
Now, it depends a little bit, Josephine. Hi, Josephine. It depends a bit where you come from. No? I mean, if you let's say for purpose of discussion today, you import all your goods and now you want to source locally, but you need to, and you don't find a partner, you end up working with farmers yourself, it's probably could be quite a challenge. I think really in that case, you need to find partners to help you do it. And so I think, I'm just taking that assumption, no? But you could maybe expound on your specific situation. But I think the key there is do local sourcing, find good partners, and work gradual. Don't kind of as you progress, you can source more locally from local communities. And then the pricing. Some cases, local products are more expensive because the production volume is just so small. Then it will be a bit harder. But many products, you know what I mean, that's not the case. So you just have to kind of look for the right set.
Thank you.
Miss Josephine, did that answer your question? Or do you have a
Yes.
follow-up on that?
No, it's a good start to it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I have a raised hand here, Miss Anna. Did you want to ask something or maybe a follow-up from your previous question? Okay, maybe Miss Anna. Oh, okay. I'll just move on to the next question. This is for Miss Cree and Mr. Bakker. What is that? We always talk about sticky problems. What's the most challenging problem or element in your business, maybe in social enterprise in general, that's still there, that remains, that's really tough to overcome, but then how do you manage it? Maybe Miss Cree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So what is the persistent problem, I guess, in terms of a social enterprise? For me, I'll answer that with two things. First, it's a very new way of doing business. And so it's very difficult in terms of navigating the policies that the government has, because we're always sitting in between for-profit and non-profit, and there's a lot of areas of, anyway, it's a price of innovation. And for the sake of, I don't want to expound for my sake, but I think you can read between the lines that it's very tough to do new things because you're left vulnerable sometimes. And then my other thing that's very difficult, so because we are in the kind of in the business of transforming, street kids into professionals, right? And so our perennial problem is always also innovating in this space. That's why we're already looking at neuroscience. I think the way to address this problem, which is it's old, it's sticky, but it really requires new ways of addressing it. That's why what we do is we look abroad, or we look to far more advanced programs, and then we adapt it here or contextualize it here. So yeah, it's a perennial problem because it hasn't been solved. So for us, it's that, and it's always just being humble enough to recognize that you will have to keep evolving what you're doing.
At the risk of opening up a huge topic, you mentioned neuroscience. I did not think we would hear that word here today. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so it's super fascinating, and I will not go into detail because I can go on for hours, but we are partnered with an organization in the States that did a lot of MRIs on people who experience poverty and trauma in their younger days. And they found out that the prefrontal cortex, or the executive function of the brain, is actually physiologically underdeveloped. This is the part of your brain that says, if I do this, then you do this. So that's why in the beginning, when we were doing Messy Bessie, we would sit our kids down and kind of hammer it down their heads and say, don't you know how lucky you are? Why are you doing this? So obviously it didn't work because they were not actually capable of doing all this critical thinking. But the beauty is the brain is a muscle. It has plasticity, so you can rewire it. So the reason why also our dropout rate is so low now is because we focus on that, on rewiring that executive function of the brain, and training them to think, if I do this, then I'll do this. So setting short-term goals. It's not rocket science. Well, it's neuroscience, but it's not difficult. Yeah. But yeah. So that's kind of at the core of what we do.
You've been waiting to say that for a while, right? It's not rocket science, it's just
neuroscience.
Sorry, Geneva and Rox, for interrupting. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. No, Mr. Bakker, maybe same question.
Yeah, I mean, I really kind of, this little sidestep into the neuroscience, it kind of shows you in a way also how in our space, it's like puzzling, no? Or you come to a new problem that you never knew that you were going to have, right? And I think the biggest issue for us, I mean, it's more if a farmer community is set up with support, with extension support and financing and the crops and everything is in place, you can execute. But to get there, to onboard a group, to ensure they enroll in financing, to liquid their land ownership documents so they can maintain tenure while you're working with them, and to look at getting the training funded, to get everything in place. It's still a lot of work, and it's trying on the farmers sometimes, because when they get enthusiastic, they think that tomorrow they can start, but you have a number of things to arrange. So the onboarding process from the moment you start talking to the moment you start working with them that is the complexity, getting all the stakeholders aligned so that you can support them. And the one who suffers from that, of course, is the farmer community that has to wait until that's in place. And so the more we streamline it, the better we get at that. No, I mean that is really where we need to kind of leapfrog. Then we can scale up.
Yeah. Thanks. Great. We have a new question that came in. Mr. Jamiko or Miss Jamiko Hamlang. Are you there? Jamiko?
Hello. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's muted earlier. I cannot speak. Okay. I want to just ask regarding, working with investors, because, social enterprise usually needs finance to scale impact. And one of the things that sometimes needs to balance out is the return of impact and the return of business. And especially in this pandemic, um, social enterprises usually focus more on the impact, and at times investors focus on the return. So how do you manage that conflict of interest? And sorry, this three question thing. What characteristics of investors could you share that's important to consider before you work with them? And the third one is maybe some mistakes that you have experienced working with investors.
Mistakes. I don't know. You want me to start? Agree? So I think this is a big topic, no? In impact investment, the balance between impact and return, and it's really a spectrum. You have people that are really more commercial, regular investors that have some impact criteria that they monitor, right? And they're looking at really commercial returns. And at the other end of the spectrum, you have close to grant funding. And so obviously, and so you need to look a little bit at your business and see what it is that you need, right? If you're closer to the grant type funding that is really not that commercially viable, you can maybe do that once or twice, but that's not a sustainable business. So ideally, really, you need to get closer to that commercial return, and there could be periods in which, if there's instability, that you need a bit of patient capital, no? And so I think there really are different type of investors for every type of kind of return profile, and I think the key really is for you to find the right partner for you, right? And that kind of answers, I guess, your second question, right? And so that's the key there, no? I mean, you go from venture philanthropy going to private equity, and the key there is just to look for the right partner. And the mistakes that you make, I don't know, is if you find out that you talk a long time, but you realize you're not aligned, you know what I mean? So I guess we all waste time talking to people that in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have been talking to. So that's the mistake I could have had. But we have identified that.
Jamiko, do you have a reaction to that or a follow-up?
Yeah, I think I agree. But thank you for sharing as well.
Great. Thank you, Jamiko. Let's go back to Toby. Toby has a question to both our speakers. Toby, would you like to raise it, please?
Yeah, thank you. Just another question. I know you both mentioned sustainability. You're working on social impact as part of your offering in a way. Can you comment a little bit on how your consumers, the people that buy your products, think of these things in relation to the product, how that's impacted them or their habits?
So in our case, it was very intentional in the beginning that we were not loud on our social mission. Although we put up Messy Bessie for the kids, we weren't sure we were helping them at all, right? I mean, if you say that you're gonna help, sometimes you do more damage than good. And so we wanted also the products to stand up for themselves. And so I think now people buy Messy Bessie, they use Messy Bessie. Not all our customers know about this social mission inside. Although when we knew that our program was working, and that took us maybe 5 to 8 years, then that was the only time we started being louder about it, but I think still not loud enough. And that said though, I think now that we have a program and we have our products, now we are going to use this social mission of ours to differentiate us in time with our big competitors, because it's something that it cannot be replicated by them. And so do our consumers, are consumers loyal to us because of it? I wouldn't say 100%, but I think in the long term, that will be the reason for their loyalty.
Yeah, and okay, just to complement Chris. So really you're working in a B2C environment, no? And so we work, of course, more in a B2B environment. So our strategic customers very much sign up to our mission, and you become really like partners, because in a way I was presenting earlier, we're like a network. We really allow our buyers or our customers also full access to our network. The idea is that we can dedicate, we can do custom origination. You know, if you say I need 100 tons of XYZ product a month, then we can either do that agnostic of where we get it, or we can have a dedicated community for you. And so our customers really, as I mentioned earlier also, we don't want to spend a lot of time on the sales. So we would like to work very closely with our customers and work together in the whole value chain. So in the cacao, it means custom fermentation. They can, you know, adjust the protocols so that the flavor profile is exclusive to them. So that's an example. But it also means visibility on which communities, you know, in a way, they claim our impact. You know what I mean? And we're fine with that. You know, the impact will not be something that Kennemer claims. It's our customers that claim it.
Thank you.
Toby, do you have any follow-up on that? Comments or questions? Or is that clear?
Well, it was just interesting. It's both seem to have done it for different reasons, not to market more of their product. But now I think it possibly, maybe it's now or the climate now, but I just was curious how much of a market differentiator that's going to become for you. Messy Bessie's, I'm guessing, is more local in the Philippines. So whether or not that means anything to the people in the Philippines and then globally, but you see this movement, right? So I just, how much of a market differentiator do you think this will be?
And I mean, just to add to that also, Toby, I think this is not going to go away. Consumers are getting more conscious where their products are coming from, and they want transparency as to how this is created, from what products, or in socially kind of fair conditions. And I think kind of these models are you know, I think it's going much faster than you know now, right? There's a lot of momentum around this, and so I think a lot of traditional companies are struggling to source transparently. So I think this is there's a lot of momentum around this.
Great. So, Coco, do you have any other questions? Because if not, I'm wrapping up the Q&A session. It's been a great discussion, sharing of insights, but also networking. I understand Mr. Bakker also posted his email address. So if you have questions, maybe partnership offers, opportunities, also just email our resource speakers. Also me, Coco posted my email address if you need anything from MBC as well. All right. So before I turn back to Coco, could I invite everyone to please share your comments and or feedback about this event via the Microsoft Forms. We are posting the QR code. You can aim your camera phone at this on your screen, and then please note also that we may use your comments in our publications. Also, it helps us also improve our services to you. All right, so thank you again, Mr. Bakker, Ms. Lopez, all of our guests for asking your questions, joining the discussion, and of course our speakers for graciously sharing their journey with us towards business inclusion. And also thank you to my colleague Ginny for co-facilitating this with me. And now I'll turn back the program to Coco. Coco?
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Rox and Ginny. At this point, we'd like to invite Mr. Richard Season. He's the acting ambassador of Australia to the Philippines for the closing remarks. Richard?
Hi, Coco.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Good morning. Magandang umaga, everyone. Thank you all so much for your participation in this really inspiring event today. I'm sure all of you have attended a lot of different events over the past 6 months. I certainly have, but this really has been one of the best. So engaging. It was wonderful to see the enthusiasm in the presentations from Simon and Cree, and the really great interest in the questions. You could almost feel it. It's terrific. Well done, everyone. Inclusive business isn't new, and as we heard, Messy Bessie's been going for a decade. But inclusive business isn't widely practiced. It's a bit like an evolution of business thinking and business practice. We had corporate social responsibility in the past, and then that was a step from charity. Now businesses' focus is on sustainability. But businesses have always engaged with or targeted or involved poor communities, especially in the agricultural sector, since time immemorial. But what's really different now are the sort of things that came out in the presentations by Cree and Simon. And so great to see you both just talking about your experience. No speeches, no notes, just really interesting, natural discussion. So what's really interesting now and what's different now is that businesses are investing with explicit social objectives in mind alongside their profit objectives. They still have to turn a profit. And what's also different is that it's given rise to a whole lot of new products. And Simon mentioned a few of these in response to question and answer. We're seeing things like social impact investment and social impact bonds, things like that, which still have to turn a profit for business, but give an opportunity for less fortunate individuals and communities to improve the quality of their life. The World Bank is currently estimating that at least 49 million people globally will be pushed back into extreme poverty by COVID-19. So extreme poverty, so less than a couple of dollars a day to live on. But there'll be tens of millions of others who are going to see and have already experienced job losses, and they'll lose their savings, and they'll see their quality of life much reduced. And we're going to see that some of these will be in the Philippines. Businesses play a vital role in community development and economic recovery, and this role is going to be clearly much bigger in the COVID-19 environment. When we look at small and medium enterprises in particular, those with a mission and a social mission in particular, we see more profits from these businesses benefiting and impacting their local communities. The case for inclusive business is now more important than ever. And Cree spoke to us about her hope that that business models will change, that the way the economy functions will change. Inclusive business is good business. And if you haven't seen that from this morning's 2 presentations, well, I guess you haven't been watching, because I think both Simon and Cree made very compelling cases for the success of their own businesses and for the hundreds that have been affected and have benefited from their engagement. I'd like to thank this morning and congratulate Coco Alquez and the Makati Business Club and its chairman, Edgar Chua, and members for supporting this event. I think this one was a real winner, Coco, well done. And congratulations also to Simon Bakker of Kennemer Foods and Cree Lopez Reyes of Messi for sharing their unique insights during the panel discussion and question and answer session. And I think your insights have been quite unique. We often say that, but given what you're doing, they really have been quite unique and special. And of course, I'd like to thank PhilDev and UNDP, who have been our partners, the Australian Government's partners, in implementing the Innovation for Social Impact Partnership. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you for the thanks as well. It's always great to work with the Embassy and AusAid. We'd like to thank as well our colleagues from PhilDev and UNDP and AusAid. And we'd like to thank all of our members and guests for making the time to participate in this morning's session. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, to Simon and Cree, I hope we can continue this conversation in the months ahead. Good day to all of you. We look forward to seeing you again in our future events. Please have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Cree,
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Simon,
Thank
Richard.
you, Ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Coco, Simon.
Thank
Cree.
you, Marcus. Rolly.
Yeah, thank you, Coco, Simon, and Cree.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And trade matters.